Did the fact that the playoffs have now begun, did that add urgency to getting all your deals done, or did they just happen, in the course of natural time?
A little bit of both. I would say more natural time than anything. Obviously, you have to prepare for all different types of scenarios, so you need a certain amount of timeline to work all those out. So I think it just happened naturally more than timeline on playoffs for sure.
Lee Spencer, CatchFence.com. How much did those two stage wins you got last week kind of help propel you, considering the outcome of the race for you?
Yeah, it was certainly big. That's why we, started the stages years ago, is for those scenarios where, you just get a bad break at the end, that, you at least get rewarded for what your performance was at the beginning. Certainly it was crucial for us to, keep us in a stable position, coming into this weekend.
And as you look at 2024 for 2311, potentially, how many races could you run in that third car without, if you do not secure a charter?
I don't know. I think a handful's, at the most what we would look to do. But again, the situations would have to be perfect and aligned. There's talks about, who we can put in where and when, but it, wouldn't be a big bulk of races for sure.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Bob and then to Zach.
Bob Pockris, Fox Sports. Manufacturer deals with teams typically are a little longer than driver deals. I'm curious if you can say, is your driver deal length the same as the 2311 Toyota deal, or if one is longer than the other, can you tell us which one?
I'm not at liberty to say.
And can you kind of describe how far did things ever get going with Ford in talks with 2311?
Don't have any comments on the speculation either.
Zach Sterniolo, NASCAR.com. Denny, obviously the last 3 races here at Kansas has been really good for you, your teams, Toyota. What is it about Kansas that has played into the manufacturer's strength, your team's strength? And does this track now have any added significance for you because of the success that 2311 especially has had here?
Yeah, I understand the reason for, thinking it's a Toyota track, but we've seen a lot of contenders throughout the race, and sometimes it just hasn't worked out for some reason or another. But certainly the results would show that, the Toyotas have been strong here. But it's so hard to, think or bank on, what has happened in the past will relate to right now. I do think that, for the 11 team, all I can speak for is me personally. There's a feel in the car that I try to find. Doesn't matter what tire changes or car changes or anything like that. I search for that feel, and if I can get it, then typically we run up front. So it's just that's the correlation for us, and I think that just if a team struggles here, they typically look at the notes of the guy that ran well, and they copy it somewhat, and then all the teams run well. So that's kind of the correlation. Certainly, it seems like we've built upon some setup iterations that both 2311 and JGR has shared that's been successful for both.
Does this track have any more significance to you?
Yeah, it certainly has. It's been a special track because when 2311 has won, I've been in the top 3 of both races when that's happened. So it is special in that sense. I got my very first Cup start here in 05, so. It's a special track, certainly one that you feel very, very confident to going when you come.
All right, we'll go back to Steve and then to Cole.
Denny, Steve Post, Motor Racing Network. You have a practice session coming up, 20 minutes of practice, then qualifying. What do you look for in that practice session? You talked about that feel, but is there specific parts of the racetrack? Are there things that you want to have in that practice session to qualify and for the race?
Yeah, I don't know why typically I haven't been totally up to speed in practice. Now, in the spring was an outlier where we were dominant from lap 1 of practice all the way through. But typically all the other Kansas races, we've been very middle of the road, and I've almost, kind of panicked overnight, like, man, we're not as good as what we should be. And then in the race, they drop the green and we just go to the front. Hopefully we can be pretty solid in practice. The track changes so much from practice to race that I just look for characteristics that I know will be good for passing. Of course, everyone's going to try to run up top because that's going to be the fastest lane. But, for me personally, I want to see, can I run somewhere else and run speed very close, because that's how you make passes. You can't just run in the wake of the car in front of you. So I try to make sure my car can maneuver, and sometimes that equals slower lap times in practice.
Okay, we'll go to Cole. Sorry.
Cole Cusimano with the Arizona Republic. Speaking on Bubba, obviously we've seen the on-track stuff really improve in year 2 with 2311 racing. Just speaking on Bubba the person, it seems like his mental is a lot stronger this year. What have you seen in Bubba from year 1 to year 2 and his progression in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a progression. I think that last week was a good example of where he's progressed. Typically, in racing, you very seldom have a just trouble-free or adversity-free race. I think he was, anytime early on in his career, a couple years ago, if he had something adverse like a spin out at the end of stage 1 like he did, it really would derail his day. Just mentally would derail him, and he'd struggle to come back from it. The difference is we see him rebounding, right, and finishing, better than he probably was running all day. So that's a good trend for that team, is to get better as the day goes, versus the opposite, where it used to be kind of they were as good as they were going to get right off the truck, and then it typically went downhill from there. So that's what I've noticed, is that he's mentally been able to overcome adversity better.
Have you been part of, I guess, helping that progression, and I guess maybe being an ear for him if he is struggling with anything? Yeah,
I mean, we constantly try to point out different drivers that have come back from penalties or crashes early, and show the result that here's what it's capable of happening if you stay in the game. And that's where your character gets defined, is when you face adversity. It's how do you respond to it.
Okay, we'll go to Dustin and then to the back.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. I'm curious, when you do a contract, and who knows how long you'll race, but early in your career when you signed a contract, I'm sure it was a different feeling, different emotion, and compared to maybe this is the last contract. And I'm curious how an athlete, as they get later in their career, look at that concept of, this might be my last contract, or this might be my next to last, as opposed to, I've got 5 more contracts to go. Is there a realization of where you are in that sense? Is even more so than, obviously you're 42 and you know where you are, but when you sign something and look 2-3 years ahead, does that kind of hit a little bit more?
It does, for sure. I think certainly when you're younger, you see it as a financial stabilizer, right? And for me, it's how many more Daytona 500s do I have left? How many more opportunities can I have to win certain events that are special to me personally, right? Or trying to accomplish a goal that I'm trying to accomplish, right? So it really puts in perspective, the urgency of accomplishing as much as you can here in the short term. When you're younger and you're in your 20s or low 30s, you've got so much runway that, if I don't get it this time, I'll get it the next, I'll get it the next. I've been very, very fortunate, in the financial planning that my team's put together, that, we never even planned past 40 as far as income was concerned. So this is all just, me telling myself how many more opportunities I'll have, right? And so I want to compete at a high level in my final year. I don't want to just kind of trickle off. I'm just way too competitive to do it. I just can't. There's no way I could stand going to the racetrack not knowing I could win. So certainly I understand that there will be a day when things fall off. Things get slower for you. And so you never know when that day can come, but certainly now that I've been doing it so long, it definitely puts a sense of urgency in years like this, where, man, I've got all the things I need to compete each and every week. This could be one of the best shots that we've had to win it all. You really put an emphasis on it, knowing that there's only so many total races left, And if you want to get to your personal goals, you got to capitalize on every single weekend.
You've certainly, and you've talked about, you've grown mentally through the years and gotten stronger and be able to handle things. You've talked about early in your career the championship, the experiences that went away. But when you talk about, hey, you know, I'm looking at how many more experience, how many more Daytona 500s, how many more chances at a championship. I'm assuming in one sense you're in a good place because you've learned all these lessons. But I guess I'd also ask is we're all human, so how do you not let the idea of, hey, this is my best chance and I can't let this one go away, or I can't let this go away, or kind of get thrown off the beaten path when something goes wrong?
Yeah. I'd say maybe you do. I mean, it's natural to get a little bit more emotional when those situations come about. You know, last week, right? I mean, how many more Southern 500s will I have a chance to win? Especially when you know, we don't even know, will our cars compete next year? Like, will be as strong? No one knows because the ebbs and flows of the sport. So you just always want to take advantage of the opportunities. Chris Gabehart always keeps a very strict tally of when our running capability or winning capability is a 1, right, in the chart. And last week marked our 59th race winning capability weekend. Now, we haven't won nearly that many, but 59 times. That's a lot since 2019. But, you know, when we look at why we haven't, I feel comfortable that I'm doing all I can do. Sometimes these things just are out of my hands, and I can only do my job to the best of my ability and continue to try to bring the team up. So I really feel confident, no matter what the outcome, that I'm not letting any weekend slip away. I wish I honestly had the discipline way back when, in the early 30s and 20s, that I do now on, you know, the work ethic, because I think certainly it's paid huge dividends.
Was the tire loose, or what was the issue?
It was, yeah. So yeah, what happened was on the video I explained it. It's just it takes a while for it to get high res video, but it's, you know, the socket is turning when it comes off. It never stopped. So the left rear is one of the most sensitive corners. Usually, if it was a left front, probably could have got away with it, no problem. But it's just the way that track works. That's the most sensitive corner in the car. And if it wasn't, you know, which it wasn't all the way tight, you're going to feel it dramatically. And it would continue to just back off until it got to the to that safety clip. But then by then I would have damaged the hub so bad that I wouldn't have been able to get a tire on.
All right, we're going to take one final question here in the back.
Howdy, Wyatt Watson with FrontStretch.com. Denny, with it coming towards the end of your career, what does it mean to get re-signed with Joe Gibbs coming towards the end?
Yeah, I mean, I said from the very beginning I want to start my career and end my career at Joe Gibbs Racing. That's continued to be the goal, right? And I think this is another step towards that. I don't know if this is the last one or not. I think that, you know, I certainly know how many more times I will run for sure. But that doesn't mean that it's over at that point. I think that there's still an opportunity to keep going beyond that as long as I know that I'm competitive on a high level. So I think people like Kevin Harvick are an anomaly, being able to be that fast and that competitive that late in his, you know, career. That's going to be really, really hard to do. So I don't think the runway is that long, but I certainly think that, you know, it's capable of being one more beyond this one. But that's all pending. You just never know. Like next year I could show up and just start running into things that I had no idea I didn't even see. So who knows how this goes, but I think you know, being with the Gibbs family is certainly always been at the forefront of my goal. I've always wanted to start end my career in one car. That's still the goal, and really knowing that they give me the best opportunity to win a championship right now is something that you don't want to take for granted, because there's only so many championship caliber race teams out there, and they're certainly one of them.